Preparatory meeting ahead of the 14th session of the Islamic Summit to be held on Friday. An upsurge in violence in northwest Nigeria has uprooted over 20,000 people from their homes, UNHCR reported. These are the headlines, more coming on your way on the World Today on iAfrica TV.
Hello viewers, you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. I am Fatmata Jajo. We now kick off with our first story. The Israeli ambassador to the Gambia yesterday organized a photo exhibition and iftar as part of activities marking his country's 71st independence celebration. Speaking at the event held at the National Museum in Banjul, His Excellency Ambassador Roy Rosenberg said the exhibition is about beginnings and baby steps, about two young countries and two people seeking to share knowledge and to make the world better, in the same spirit of giving and doing good that the holy month of Ramadan is all about. Ismail Sonko was there and filed in this report.
The Israeli ambassador to the Gambia, Roy Rosenblatt, has called on the Gambians later to follow the footsteps of the former President Sadauda Kairaba Jawara for what he did during his presidency in the Gambia by cooperating with other countries. He made this remark during the photo exhibition exercise organized by his embassy in Banjul, held at the National Museum on Wednesday. Ambassador Roy revealed that Sadauda Kairaba Jawara first visited Israel in 1962, 3 years before Gambian independence, where the first agreement on cooperation was signed between the two countries, and other agreements signed included cooperation in healthcare, education, and agriculture.
I quote, "The idea of setting conflicts between peoples by peaceful means applies to all countries in the Middle East as in Vietnam," unquote, said Prime Minister of the Gambia, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, in Jerusalem after signing an agreement of friendship between the Gambia and Israel on October 1966. That was Sir Dawda's third visit to Jerusalem, visiting also in 1962 and 1963. He met our presidents, our prime ministers, David Ben-Gurion and Levi Eshkol, Golda Meir, Moshe Dayan, and others. In his first visit in 1962, 3 years before independence, the first agreement on cooperation was signed between the countries. Other agreements signed included cooperation in healthcare, agriculture, and scholarships for Gambian students to study in Israel.
He noted that his visit to Sadauda Kairaba Jawara will create a strong friendship between the two peoples, as well as revitalizing those old agreements and reviewing this ongoing friendship.
Tomorrow, it will be my great honor to visit Sir Dawda Jawara here in Banjul and emphasize how much we cherish the strong friendship between our two peoples. And reviving the ongoing friendship. President Barrow told me how much he appreciated his meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu 2 years ago. Gambian Minister of Education Claudiana Cole, Lord Mayor of Banjul, and other officials visited Israel for high-level seminars. Others are in Israel as we speak.
He added that when Professor Sisi reached out to him with rare and unique photographs representing the history of the two nations, he was fascinated by the opportunity.
The exhibition we are about to see is about beginnings and baby steps. It's about two young countries and two peoples, two nations, seeking to share knowledge and to make the world better. In the same spirit of giving and doing good, that is the holy month of Ramadan is all about. I hope to see Gambian leadership following Sir Dawda and visiting Israel soon.
For his part, Hamad Nkeba, Minister of Tourism and Culture, said that this activity is a mandate of NCAC to interpret and promote all aspects of Gambian history and culture.
We as a nation are reminded of our past glories and chart new ways into the future. In this case, from the exhibition, we can see how since even before the Gambia became independent, our founding fathers saw the need to build friendship with others, State of Israel included. Therefore, Mr. Ambassador, it is clear that history here has lessons which may be useful for future relationship between our two countries.
Mr. Ba said Gambia has reached many ecological sites, but there is no Gambian who is trained to study the site and build to help national identity that will promote tourism and create jobs.
For the NCAC, it is hoped that the exhibition will forge ties between the embassy and the ministry to enable NCAC train its staff in archaeology, museum studies, exhibition design, heritage management in Israel, colleges and universities. As we speak, there is no trained Gambian archaeologist. This is sad, as the Gambia has many rich archaeological sites, but no trained archaeologists to study these sites and valorize them to help build a national identity and promote tourism and create jobs as envisaged in the National Development Plan of President Adam Barrow.
Minister Ba appeals to the ambassador of Israel to help the NCAC and build one exhibition center in this country that will help the artists to exhibit their products.
Ambassador, it is sad to note that we are the only country in the sub-region without a national theater.
Without a national theater?
We don't have it. The only country in the sub-region without a national theater. We are the only country in the sub-region without a national museum. We are the only country in the sub-region who do not have a cultural center where our artists can display their art products, where they can mingle and sell their products. It is very sad. It's been neglected the last 50-something years. We are the only country. So we will appeal to you to help support this country. We have over 20,000 jobs lying there, not exploited. And I hope that with your support and contribution, we should be able to achieve even one of those three things I've mentioned to you.
The National Center for Arts and Culture, with the mandate to promote and develop Gambian artists and culture, aims to interpret and preserve national heritage sites and coordinate the development of creative and performing arts, as well as documenting the history of traditions of the Gambia. For African News, this is Ismail Songo reporting.
Vision Development Foundation over the weekend distributed over 3,000 bags of sugar of 10 kilograms to over 30 communities and institutions around the country in a ceremony held at the foundation head office in Churchillstown. The Chief Executive Officer of the foundation, Modutro Dabo, continues his humanitarian service with a handsome donation of 31 communities as part of his benevolence to the needy. Saja Sambo gives us more on that.
As part of its social responsibilities towards nation building, Vision Development Foundation, under its prestigious sole sponsor, Modutro Dabo, on Friday at its headquarters in Churchillstown, distributed their annual Ramadan sugar charity. 3,810 kilograms of bags of sugar was on Friday distributed to 31 communities and institutions around the breadth and length of the country. Speaking to beneficiaries, the public relations officer of the foundation, Sihu Fofana, reiterated the need for transparency in distribution of the sugar to the masses, noting the sugar meant for charity is handed over to the governors of the different regions so as they could facilitate and ensure each family get its share.
Yo bari na diamo to je nga meji tandalla wolem nyinti ko dalilo mi yakendi nga sukro di politicianol la wolem nyinti ko politicianol fanal ye mol le sote bala milia lon ko bulol me ko olbe so dalilo mimbije wolem nyinti ko ase dila itel fanam bulol be futala mol mil le se sukro nyin kata pour asi futa non wala bari sukro men dita siatale amandi nyin kamala ko pour mo kunkilin na sata yata mande adiate nyame bara dita nyine la ko ning afuta talla drong al sakata mol milbal noma o al ni mol milbe kafu killing di besi sukuro nyi sotono isi muna fanje wo ngani yo wala be ko nyin koma yo wala ken dina ngadi politician non la ngadi musuka fol fanala.
Jere Demba, the Alcalo of Sifo village in Kombo South, thanked the foundation for the benevolent gesture they gave out, especially in this holy month of Ramadan, as this act, he said, could only come from the heart.
Mimi mkola banko molie nse kapunyoma ngadua nyin kapoye fo alse baraka keto alse tankandi setana alse so nyato tala kapu nyimu ngani o dang dornati ndede mabete la ku jama fe mi yalo ke ngani o ke misilmo le ke la soto fe unta kadi misilmo la ngani o kan mo min be wala banko kan nse duwe fo alse tankandi setana.
Bani Ward constituency representative Karanke Tiana challenged the people to emulate Vision Development Foundation, as if all hands should be put on deck, the long-standing poverty syndrome will be a history.
Motro dabo baro minaten alale bajola hanni mo man duwa ala si duwa jabam banko na futiolu nimbe misal motro dabola oto batata ndo tarla oto dunia kono liye jama lo ye kolon si ye mol emisi mol balundi alale beyti mari jola a solo a danke nan tele kene duwar no baye bani won ntele be jang wole nte bulana jam pour kana ka duwa jang mbe duwala si man jata kenda ka ko be ko ngol kono.
The parliamentarian member for Tumani constituency in URR Fude Drame said the work Vision Development Foundation is doing around the country, government is aware of it and has recognized their efforts. He said Gambians should emulate on through to help combat poverty, as the government cannot do it alone.
Vision Development Foundation fanam beten tula bake mbeja ila be katako menke kan nyimbanko kan nga sutele because nyimankente la sanji foloti kanana njang nyina mun na sinya fula njang kanana njang nyi sukuro membe di kan abe di kan muslimon lela adun jiko ani lamania wala kenna be di kan na pour ngata ngadi na molula men yalon ko amanke la fitala de bari mol men yalon ko sulatala niajube base banko kan a jam fata janna bakele molbe keri men yalon ko amanke mo kemolti bari mo wuli wulol le men yalon ko be base banko kan bi me yalon ko lolo ni la faka sukuro domo foya sang ila posole kono ka a dépense because baluwo ko leata bake soko santo don kolbulu so ka sukuru boro londi ka londi la bun kono ka baluwola aka kolea dol bulu bakele si menke no wala muko lolo ka struggle le pour ka sukuru podi kilung sonsono ka ke la monol la wala la jikando la ka minno ala manga molu sodo men yalon ko kodobe bulu ye muluntan nyola comme vision nyim foundation la men sakene be gammenol makola men yalon ko be je man sembo sodo no ke fam makoy no.
This is the second time Vision Development Foundation is giving out sugar to Gambians within a space of 14 days in this year's Ramadan, and more is expected to reach out to citizens and residents of the Gambia before the end of the Ramadan. Sajo Sambo reports for iAfrica TV News.
That was Saja Sambo at the donation of VDF's donation of sugar bags to 31 communities. The U.S. State Department said yesterday that Iran is withdrawing Hezbollah forces from Syria because of Washington's pressure campaign against Tehran, including sanctions and military deployments. Our campaign is working. The campaign is starving Iran's proxies of the funds they rely on to operate on behalf of the regime, Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortega said in a news conference. She emphasized the need to continue putting maximum pressure on the Iranian regime to deny it means to conduct its destructive foreign policy.
Our European allies have concurred with us on this. They've been in breach for several years. And they have tested, produced, fielded an INF weapon. So I'm going to let DIA speak on behalf of that particular comments that they made today. But we are certainly alarmed that they continue to disregard their international obligations as it relates to arms control. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two quick questions, please.
Yes.
One, this was the second time U.S. asked India to cut off Iranian oils. First it happened during President Obama. Any alternative for the energy needs of India?
Any alternative? Is that what
Yes,
you said? So we've coordinated closely, of course, with them to minimize any negative impact. And for the North Korean people. There is a path out of these economic sanctions. They do remain, of course, and they will remain in effect, but they're not forever. By the way, the same thing goes for other countries that may be under U.S. economic sanctions. There's a path forward, there's a way out, and we welcome Kim Jong-un and his leadership to see the bright future that we believe is possible for his people. Yes.
Back to Iran, you may have seen the comments by Iranian President Rouhani saying that the road is not closed to negotiations. And with President Trump also saying that he would like to negotiate, do you see any way forward that there might be, with help of perhaps somebody else arbitrating or negotiating, any way forward on that?
I see 12 ways forward. I think that we have been very explicit here. We do not want a war with Iran. We want to de-escalate with Iran. We do not seek any of the things that have been alleged over the past few weeks. In fact, what we seek is to end economic sanctions, to end the maximum pressure campaign. That's where we want to get. We want the Iranian regime to see these 12 things that Secretary Pompeo laid out and to come to the table, to talk to us, to behave like a normal nation. Stop with the assassination plots in Europe. It's intolerable. We will not stand for it. Stop supporting terrorism. Stop malign regional behavior. Stop trying to control Beirut, Damascus, Sana'a. There is a path forward, and we will talk tomorrow if they would like to see the bright future.
In response to the continuous presence of birds at the airport, the government has announced plans to start a campaign on Saturday against birds to protect flights from colliding with them. This came just a day after President Adama Barrow instituted an emergency strategic committee during an airport security stakeholders meeting to clean up dump sites and landfills within close proximity of the airport amidst growing concern over aviation safety due to bird strike. The Department of Strategic Policy and Delivery at the Presidency said it has already mobilized 35 trucks and over 100 personnel from various security services and forces for war on birds next week.
The leader of GMC political party, who doubles as the special advisor to President Barrow, have said that the Department of Strategic Policy and Delivery under his purview will face a major rebuff to execute their mandate of waste management and environmental cleanliness. The former Interior Minister, Maifadi, made this remark yesterday at the State House in a press briefing aimed at conducting a major sensitization campaign on waste management throughout the country, targeting West Coast region, in particular the Banjul International Airport. It could be recalled that airline agencies have made preservations that the Banjul International Airport of recent have been invaded with birds that keep flying around the railways, disrupting the flight safe landing. These birds are believed to come to the airport looking for food from the garbages and waste dumped in and around the airport perimeter fence by inhabitants of Yundum and the surroundings. Talking to the entire population, especially those living around the airport area through the media, Mai Ahmed Fadi stressed that the department will be further reinforced with all mechanisms to ensure President Barrow's priority of having a clean nation is achieved.
The Department of Strategic Policy and Delivery will be very, very robust in ensuring that the President's priorities are fulfilled. And this is a priority for the state. So I am appealing to communities that live around, particularly the airport vicinity, to manage their refuse, their household refuse effectively. And particularly I am also appealing to those around the markets in the area, because all of these things attract. Now, we should not be in the habit of throwing garbage everywhere. Government has a role to play, and government is performing part of this role. Of course, there are constraints in terms of resources and otherwise, but the rest has to do with attitude. If you have a refuse in your house, or you are in a vehicle, why should you just throw it away and go on your own? Or you are in a market area, you are a fishmonger, you sell fish, you just remove the scales and everything and just scatter it all over, regardless of concern for other citizens as well.
Fatih Fora said the immediate measure to address this bird invasion issue is of paramount importance to government, while the policy plan is to put a permanent end to waste displacement.
But the strategy is to put an end to this in the long term. The immediate measure that have to do with this bird strike around the airport is of fundamental importance to government. And so on Saturday, government is going to mobilize sufficient resources in order to make sure that we are able to deal with the immediate threat satisfactorily. Now, but because the communities have a role to play, the alcalos and the VDCs and the imams around this vicinity, around the area, the airport perimeter area, must all come out on that day to support us.
Mai Ahmed Fadi concluded by challenging the media houses to help report on environmental hazards in sensitizing the population.
So we would want the entire population to be sensitized to the idea of environmental cleanliness, and in particular around the airport area. And the media has a role to play in this. We would like to see reporting on the environment. We would like to see sensitization, among communities. The VDCs in all these communities must also have a responsibility to perform. When we talk about New Gambia, we cannot effectively apply the New Gambia if we don't have new attitude.
For his part, the Director of Department of Strategic Policy and Delivery, Alaji Nyangadu, used the opportunity to cut the message across that the ban of plastic bag usage is still a law in the Gambia and people will soon be prosecuted if found wanting.
We want to take this opportunity to tell you the law on plastic is still a law in this country. People will soon be prosecuted for using plastic. The IG was informed yesterday and he has agreed that his men will be supporting NEA to ensure that those things are done. But nobody should be waiting to be prosecuted. You go to some countries, you think you are not in Africa.
This time, the Gambia government meant business when the policy of bringing a permanent stop to waste littering around everywhere in the country, as it has now developed to be a threat to their tourism industry, one of the highest revenue contributors to the GDP. Sajo Sambu reports for Africa TV News.
Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu meets with Senegalese Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Minister Amadou Ba in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia yesterday in the sidelines of the 14th OIC summit in Medina. Minister Cavusoglu emphasized that they reached the target of $400 million Turkey-Senegal trade volume set by the two presidents. Minister Cavusoglu stated that they would also continue to enhance their cooperation in the fields of defense, industry, culture, and education. In recent years, relations between Senegal and Turkey have been revived. The two parties have declared their mutual willingness to further develop bilateral relations in all areas at every occasion. The Turkish Development and Cooperation Agency, which have already opened 2 offices in Eastern Africa, opened its first office in Western Africa in Dakar in April 2007. Since its foundation, the Office of the Turkish Development and Cooperation Agency in Dakar has disbursed of approximately $2 million for maintenance and renewal activities and supplied material aid, especially for the largest higher education institution of Dakar, namely Sheikh Anta Diop University. In addition, the office has contributed to free health screening of 20,000 persons and donated medicine. Member states held a preparatory meeting yesterday ahead of the 14th session of the Islamic Summit Conference in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on Friday. The ministerial meeting discussed several regional and international issues of concern to Islamic countries and issues of joint Islamic cooperation. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu, who chaired the meeting, called on his colleagues to close rank to address disturbing issues affecting the Muslim Ummah. Listen to him in this insert.
To work hard to tackle other major challenges that Muslims are facing around the world, including the plight of the Rohingya Muslims. Together with fellow member states, we drafted roadmaps, developed mechanisms, and demonstrated solidarity and unity in action. This led to joint international positions and results, such as the special emergency sessions of the UN General Assembly, where a resolution reaffirming the status of Al-Quds was adopted. We have made considerable headway in new areas of cooperation like water, youth, and the status and empowerment of women. The adoption of the OIC Youth Strategy, the establishment of the bodies such as Women Consultative Council, Water Council, UNRWA WAFU Fund, Police Cooperation and Coordination Center and Somalia Mission, the establishment of Contact Group on Muslims in Europe and on Friends of Mediation, and the initiation of the reform process of the OIC are examples of what we have accomplished in the last 3 years. In sum, we organized and initiated more than 30 high-level meetings along with numerous side events and committee meetings. Dear colleagues, brothers and sisters, these initiatives and meetings produce substantive decisions under the OIC. They also serve as platforms for consultation, communication, and coordination among the OIC member states. The most recent example of them is the open-ended emergency meeting of the Executive Committee in Istanbul. We express our common reaction to the terrorist and Islamophobic attack in Christchurch in a timely manner. This meeting was also a strong action toward countering hatred and intolerance against Muslims. This unified message was immediately echoed at the UN General Assembly. I personally went to New York and addressed the UN General Assembly. This was a milestone moment that showed us in the importance of concerted and coordinated action. However, we are still at the beginning stage of a long fight against Islamophobia and the toxic ideologies behind it. The threat of xenophobia, racism, and most importantly, hatred against Islam and the Muslims will not easily disappear in the future. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, dear brothers and sisters, during our chairmanship, we exerted efforts to preserve the historical status of Al-Quds, to expose Israel's excessive and indiscriminate use of force, as well as its inhumane blockade against Palestinians in Gaza, and to provide protection for the Palestinian civilians from Israeli attacks. It goes without saying that much more needs to be done in these areas as the Palestinian cause continues to face unprecedented challenges.
Coming up after the break, OIC Secretary Yusuf Al-Uthayman, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu, and Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmoud Qureshi attended the OIC Ministerial Contact Group on Jammu and Kashmir on the sidelines of the 14th session of the Islamic Summit Conference in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. We remind you that you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. Let's now take a look at the remaining stories. United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Deputy Relief Coordinator Ursula Miller has told the Security Council that further military operations in Idlib will overwhelm our ability to respond. Miller said any of our humanitarian partners are part of the affected population and have themselves been displaced. As a result, in many areas of active hostilities, humanitarian operations have been suspended. The Assistant Secretary General said Council members are clearly aware of the tragic humanitarian situation in Syria. Here's an insert.
Further military operations will overwhelm all ability to respond. Many of our humanitarian partners are part of the affected population and have themselves been displaced. As a result, in many areas of active hostilities, humanitarian operations have been suspended. There is no question today about whether you, members of this Council, are aware of the tragic humanitarian situation in Syria. You clearly are. The question today is what you will do to protect civilians in Idlib, the latest example of an entirely known, predictable, and preventable humanitarian disaster unfolding before our eyes.
Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Yusuf Uthayman, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu, and Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmoud Qureshi attended the OIC Ministerial Contact Group on Jammu and Kashmir on the sidelines of the 14th session of the Islamic Summit Conference in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Foreign ministers are visiting Saudi Arabia to attend the meetings of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Contact Group on Jammu and Kashmir and Council of Foreign Ministers in Jeddah and to participate in the 14th Islamic Summit in Makkah. During the meeting, foreign ministers emphasized they are deeply concerned with the security and humanitarian situation in Jammu and Kashmir and sincerely desired that the Kashmir issue would be resolved through peaceful means between India and Pakistan based on the relevant UN resolutions in line with the aspirations of the people of Kashmir. In violence in areas of northwest Nigeria and beyond the reach of humanitarians has forced thousands of people to flee neighboring Niger. UN Refugee Agency UNHCR said, warning that some 20,000 people have been uprooted from their homes since April in Nigeria's Sokoto and Zamfara states. The secretary agency's Babat Baluk told journalists in Geneva that UNHCR is working with authorities in Niger to help the new arrivals. People are fleeing due to multiple reasons, Baluk said, including clashes between farmers and herders of different ethnic groups, vigilantism, as well as kidnappings for ransom.
Leaving Nigeria and arriving in Niger's northeastern Maradi region speak of witnessing extreme violence unleashed against civilians, including machete attacks, kidnappings, and sexual violence. The majority of the recent arrivals are women and children. People are fleeing due to multiple reasons as far as we understand, including clashes between farmers and herders of different ethnic groups, vigilantism, as well as kidnappings for ransom. These attacks and this violence against civilians into Niger, and as refugees continue to arrive, the fear is if this violence goes unchecked, more people could be displaced internally and also into Niger. The reality is that people who come or who have arrived in Niger speak of extreme violence against civilians, and also the reality that 20,000 are now refugees in Niger. The worry is this adds a new dimension into the ongoing conflict that is already affecting Nigeria.
We now take a look at sports. The Gambia is paired with Ghana in this summer's WAFU Nations Cup draw held in Senegal last night. The tie is among 7 others to determine which 8 nations of the 16 countries will progress to play in the WAFU Nations Cup proper. Ismaila Sanko gives us more.
That newspaper has reported that the Gambia is paired with Ghana in this summer's WAFU Nation Cup draw held in Senegal last night. The tie is among 7 others to determine which 8 nations of the 16 countries will progress to play in the WAFU Nations Cup. The 8 losers of the playoffs will themselves play a lower competition called the Plates, also to take place in Dakar. The Gambia was represented at the draw by coach Omar Cisse, whose team, the under-23 squad, will participate in the tournament. All 16 member countries will travel to Dakar, where the knockouts and the subsequent 2 different tournaments will be played. The draw will separate the 16 teams into 2. The winners play the cup, whilst the losers play the plate. For Africa Sport, this is Ismaila Sonko reporting.
Ismaila Sonko for Sports there. Well, viewers, that's all we have for you on the World Today News Bulletin. For more on these and other stories, kindly log on to our website, iafrica.tv. I am Fatmata Jaju. Bye for now. Over electoral rigging rocks Zimbabwe as the country.
Yesterday, after listening to Prime Minister May's assessment of the state of the